Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, getting back to speaking of the chimpanzees and how they copulate 84 times in 24 hours.
That was just one chimpanzee. That was not.
But I was wondering if that translates to success rate in reproduction. How does that translate to maybe the other ones? And getting to that, is it being linked to promiscuity? Is it, rather than being externally driven, is it possibly because of sperm, maybe there's less sperm viability, so there's more tendency to engage interaction?
Okay. So the general question is, why should females mate so many times? Is that a fair way of thinking about it? Because that's...
the increased number of times, does that correlate with the...
Oh, yes, right. And do females who mate more often have higher fitness? And this is specifically in chimpanzees, but the question can be made general as well.
So I gave you a couple of examples where we've actually been able to do those studies and see that females that mate with more males actually are able to produce more offspring. We also have data, and again in some species, not chimpanzees for this one, where if we force a female to mate with just one male, like in a laboratory, she actually will produce fewer offspring than if we let her make the choice. So there's probably some genetic incompatibility stuff that goes on that we're not really aware of. The other thing that goes on is, so I told you about the billions of sperm that are produced. Turns out that the female reproductive tract is actually really hostile to sperm. So most of those sperm wind up being killed by the female reproductive tract. Very few of them make it very far. And so it is, again, possible, it's very likely in an evolutionary sense, that copulating that often allows some kind of screening of genetic quality in sperm. You might imagine the best swimmers might carry the best genes. We know this from some fly studies. I don't think we know it for chimpanzees, but it's certainly a useful hypothesis, and it may turn out to be true if it ever can be studied rigorously.
You had a question, I think. Yeah.
Is there any evidence with regards to animal hormones actually getting into the human system and that evolving into something else, such as, hormones to raise chickens, hormones in the milk, hormones from cows, etc.? Is there any evidence that perhaps it's evolving and changing our own?
Okay, so hormones that we get from other animals through milk, and we're talking about industrialized societies, though we know they have physiological effects. Everyone's aware of that. The question is, could they could they be a selective agent in human evolution?
I'm not aware that they currently are a selective agent. I think that pretty much anything in our environment has the potential to be a selective agent. I think sometimes we forget that we're as subject to selection as the next thing. I mean, we haven't stopped evolving. We didn't stop evolving when we moved out of Africa, when we were evolving as a species. So could this be a selective mechanism? I think it absolutely could, but I think we don't know yet how that would happen. But the place to start is mechanistically with those physiological differences and the impact of those physiological impacts of hormones on our fitness. Right.
Shall we take one more question? Anyone have a burning question? Anyone else? Just before you had one. Anyone else? Okay, yes.
I read a study about increased amounts of sperm in men who had been separate from their spouses for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, I mean, obviously, if the female had copulated with somebody else while they were separate, how would that, right. I mean, it's not going to help in humans. Right. So is that a cue of some sort of evolutionary
past? So the story is, if you separate partners, sperm counts go up in males. And that's a story I've heard as well, but I don't have the data. But the question is, well, the time scale is wrong because females don't store sperm. So in a lot of species, females store sperm, and they use it later, in which case, so if you came back and you added more, then you would get a chance. In humans, that's not the case. So what would the evolutionary reason be for that increased sperm count in partners that have been separated?
is it not the case in humans? I mean, she could have just had a little nookie right before you walked in the door, right? So in that case, actually, it does work. So it would depend on the relative timing. So when a female releases an egg, I have to remember my human reproductive system, but there's a couple of days in there where that egg can be fertilized, and so it may not be too late, actually. So there could be an adaptive explanation for it.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's thank Elizabeth Elle once again.